Each year, Microsoft Research hosts hundreds of influential speakers from around the world, including leading scientists, renowned experts in technology, book authors, and leading academics, and makes videos of these lectures freely available.
So we took you around the world, and now we're bringing you back to University of Washington and our last presentation for today.
All right, good afternoon. We are students from the University of Washington, and it is our pleasure to introduce you to Community Slate, a project on improving public participation in urban planning. Today's urban planning process is inconvenient and inaccessible. Because of high barriers for participation, only a small vocal minority end up getting heard. Platforms like neighborhood blogs and forums are able to engage thousands or more people than the community meetings that are run by the city. But because these platforms aren't directly connected to the city, there's no guarantee that the people's voices are being heard by city officials. But this kind of feedback is important because it leads to an improvement in the quality of decisions made by the government, and it minimizes the costs and delays. So what if we could use social media technologies to guide this discussion? What if you could take part in this planning process from your living room, or even the sidewalk? We propose Community Slate. It's a cross-connected platform where city planners are able to inform neighborhoods about development projects and then make better decisions based on the feedback they receive throughout a project's timeline. Now, we're going to present to you a video showing a fictionalized account of what the future could be with Community Slate.
Public involvement in urban planning is always needed, but it can sometimes be a long and frustrating process. And the planning field in city development has traditionally been very antiquated. You know, it's an area that's been slow to catch up with technology. We didn't really understand how much more inclusive it could be until we used the new system. We decided to first try Community Slate on an urban rest stop project in Seattle. It's a laundry and shower facility for the homeless. There are several located in the city, and they've been serving the homeless without disturbing nearby businesses and tenants. Because this site is in a residential area, we knew we needed to engage the public early to make sure their concerns were being heard and responded to. Community Slate has helped us make communication and back and forth much more transparent. It was easy for the public to see what others in their community were saying, and it was easy for us to track the numbers on specific issues. I think what's unique about Community Slate is that it's able to generate curiosity in people about what's going on in their neighborhood. The two biggest concerns we observed were the overall safety and people worrying that the rest stop would attract more homeless to the area. Based on the feedback we received early in the process, we were able to organize the information and propose alternatives. The adjustments that won over the largest amount of public support were limiting the rest stop's hours and making sure that there was someone working security whenever the facility would be open. It's much easier to discover and participate in all these projects that are happening in the city. You can be involved from anywhere. And the construction cranes aren't the only indicators anymore. The urban rest stop is a great example. It was something that had to be done on the city's part, but with the public's input, we were able to actively respond to the neighborhood's concerns and move forward with the project. And that's the goal, working together with communities to create a better city.
So something that we observed when we were watching the movie is that the goal of Community Slate is to create accessibility between the public as well as city planners. And it accomplishes this in 3 different entry points. The first is the development sign, next is the mobile application, and finally the website itself. And what I'd like to do is go into more detail on each of these entry points. Starting off with the development sign, the current signs that we use within the city are often these static and impersonal signs that the city planner that we actually interviewed kind of referred to them as these bureaucratic signs that just collected graffiti. But the signs that were actually most successful were more colorful and more visually appealing, and we wanted to take those as an influence in developing a sign of our own. Community Slate has a portrait-style sign that incorporates color and is visually dynamic, having clear information that people in the streets can follow. Also, it includes two basic interactive elements, the first of which is a removable portion of the sign, which allows the city planner to update information along the way. This keeps people that are on the streets up to date. The next is an NFC tag located at the bottom left-hand side, which allows people to connect directly to Community Slate. The next entry point is the mobile application. Using the mobile application, users that engage in the NFC tag are taken directly to a project's information. They're able to browse info posted by the city planners, as well as questions that the city planners wish to receive feedback. The public is able to disagree or agree or even bring up issues of their own. They are also given a visual data visualization of what other members within their community are saying on the certain topics. And finally, another portion of the mobile application is a map view. Using this map, individuals are able to discover more projects within their area that they can visit or monitor. The final entry point is the website. This provides the most comprehensive information, as well as a visual of a timeline and structured conversation on the development projects themselves. Upon entering the website, they're given a description much like the mobile application, located on the left-hand side. A vertical timeline showcases what stage in the development project a certain site is at, and they're able to follow along as it progresses. In the center, much like the mobile app, there is a questionnaire that is posted by the city planners. As more people begin to generate content and more activity is visualized on the website, the most hits, or the ones that are generating the most popularity, are brought directly to the top. To generate some more transparency between the public and the city planners, the information that's most active or generating the most concern can actually be addressed directly by a forum that the city planner can connect with.
Now, development signs that face a lot of public opposition can be frustrating and costly. But by allowing city planners to engage with the public right from the beginning and then throughout a project, we open up the transparency on government decisions and, we increase transparency in government decisions and then improve the development projects, thereby minimizing cost and time. Now we understand that engaging users in these kind of planning processes is difficult. And we've been talking to a lot of city officials to validate our concept through the city's eyes. But moving forward, we need to better understand the various contexts in which our users are going to be interacting with these prototypes. We hope that Community Slate not only helps the public and the planners work together to improve their cities, but then it can also serve as a model for better democratic participation in other government issues. Thank you.
What do you think are the difficult aspects of getting the information? Why don't you think this exists at the moment? And where do you think the real resistance is to having something like this working?
Well, I don't think that currently anything works right now is because they haven't really looked at the models that are currently being used by city planners. Right now there's a lot of forums online, there's a lot of independent blogs, and there's like city planning meetings that they offer, and I think what they need to do is kind of observe how those are being effective and kind of transfer to a system such as this one, or consider something that follows a very similar guideline.
Yeah, there are like different ways that the city has constructed for people to engage with planners, but they're not very, they're not very effective. Like, they have these community meetings that are, like these long drawn out things in the evenings where, people are kind of reluctant to go to them. It takes time, away from their families. And not only that, people just aren't, the city kind of fails in communicating when you should be giving what kind of feedback. So people are just generally confused about, oh, do I talk about design or do I talk about zoning? Because the city does want very specific types of feedback in specific phases. And there's a lot of communication in that realm.
I think also to qualify, this is really difficult, like to have community members get together and really discuss what they want to see from city planners and vice versa. And there is definitely a disengaged population too that's difficult to connect with. So it's just a matter of like, how can we start the conversation? That's what Community Slate's trying to do.
I was going to say too, actually, I think one of the things that's difficult right now in the process is sort of the public open-ended forums that the city uses where people assume that they can come and say whatever they want. When we talked to city officials, it seemed like they really liked the idea of having a more structured conversation where they could ask really specific questions.
Hey, just a quick question, because you said earlier on that you were trying to address kind of an imbalance that there was a high threshold to have influence, and it was dominated by special interest groups, and the individual didn't have such a voice, and this would bring it. So the question is, how have you thought about dealing with the potential for this to be gamed by those very same special interest groups, so that again your voice is overwhelmed by those that are already have a voice? It's just louder.
I think we're assuming that there would have to be some sort of
Identification
and login process, so that for specific projects you would know who the community members are and where they live in proximity to whatever the development is, and that would make it almost like a more complex form of voting, and that would make it hopefully a more democratic process. Yeah, and more accountable.
Do we have an audience question, Nathan? Do you have something you want to?
I think I saw a hand.
Oh, or Clay?
Oh, yeah. I was going to say that a lot of politics is trade-offs, right? If I can vote for something that costs no money or something that costs some money, why not just go ahead and vote for the thing that costs some money? And in the choices you showed, the expensive choice, right, have a guard station there during business hours, loads costs onto the project that I don't feel as a taxpayer because it's such a small piece of my tax revenues. But how do you introduce the public to the idea that there are trade-offs in the choices they're making, so you don't just get people running up the bill for every project they're asked to comment on?
Well, I think with every initiative, like this is not a way that people are having direct absolute say in it. They're bringing up these questions, and what we're doing is giving them a voice. If they say that they want a security guard and they voted on it, there is we haven't tested anything that's going to, guarantee that's something that they can implement right away. That's something that would come with more research. But at least they didn't feel like this was being, the way that this particular project actually is going about in the city of Seattle. It is just being in place, and it's abrupt. And so this is a method that we can give them this information and start more conversations on it and maybe come to an agreement that isn't as, loading on so much cost.
I mean, it's also hopefully that the planners would maybe rearrange budgets, or there's also the part of the website where the planners can respond to what the audiences or the users saying, so they could say like, oh, it was good effort, but we might not be able to work this into the project.
All right. Well, thank you guys. Awesome.
Thank you.
So that's it, you guys. Mike, you want to? The awesome Mike, I'm going to make him come out because he is making this all happen. So thank you so much. Thanks, you guys, for coming. Pretty inspiring, awesome, great projects. Stick around, ask the students questions. Thanks to all the professors and all the liaisons. And yay, thanks.